in China, and I remember kind of having a panic attack just trying to like get a McMuffin in the morning before this event. Okay, we should be okay with the volume.
Really, it's kind of out of the ordinary. It's like,
all right, so just keep it down. Is this volume okay? It's like kind of there.
Yes, I love eating. What is my friend doing locked up? Let me help him. Okay.
If you hear my
Bot
voice,
Rix
by
has
the way,
correctly joined the channel.
you can tell I haven't learned how to project from my diaphragm.
Here's Stork over here at the middle end.
That's me.
Now, there's only 3 starting spots on this map, so whenever you scout your opponent,
My voice is so nasally.
right off the bat. It and Jadon's Overlord being sent in the right direction, and that is always great for a Zerg player on a more than 2-player map.
So you can see that this was when they had. Oh well, I guess we're gonna go back to the audience for a second here.
Really end up being on, especially if they use some sort of weird strategy.
Absolutely. You can see there's already a lot of Jadon signs in the front. I don't believe we've seen this many Stork signs.
So down here at the bottom right of the screen, you can see that they have this. This was really cool. They went into the game, used the code to like pull out the information, so you can see the players' minerals, and supply. I remember being really excited that they had this.
And basically just
It's always had WCG. Was that the finals were also a best of 3.
See a lot more cheering to the audience.
I would love to have a best of 5. I feel like if you're going to go finals, you have to have best of 5. You can do best of 7 as well, but actually, a lot of people, it's like, why are every finals always a best of 7? Think about this. It's very rare to get a 4-3 in a best of 7 finals. For a best of 5 finals, it's fairly common to get a 5-2. Sorry, a 3-2.
These guys, they're actually the front that's when we came down here. We also live in
Oh,
Britain.
look at this. He blocks.
He's going to have just a little bit later.
I forgot you could do that on this map. Guys, John looking so young there. Yeah, he's a really sweet guy. I remember being a little bit starstruck when I met him. It's like one of those moments where you've seen somebody on TV and then like they're there in real life and you're like, they're real people. That's funny that Stork actually lets the pylon finish. This goes to show you how different people approach the game. Finish now. If they were better to just cancel and run back. One thing culturally that was very different from China to Korea back around this time was that the Korean fans were more likely to hide their faces back then, whereas Chinese fans will all look in the camera and wave and say hi, like American fans. When you go to different countries, you realize that audiences behave very differently. If you put Germans on camera, a lot of times, at least back when I was going to Germany and doing events there, a lot of times they wouldn't react or do anything. They just kind of stand there. Yeah, it's just funny to see how people behave different cultures. What do I think I've improved most on in casting? Well, my voice is, I'm able to control my voice. Right, so I don't lose my voice anywhere near as often, protecting my diaphragm from that, so that helps. I think my thoughts are more organized. Obviously, the game knowledge picks up. I feel like I always have something to say now when I'm casting. I do feel like casting is something where you just have to always be working on it. There's always room for improvement.
And it's good. A little bit bad, yeah, I kind of messed up there. Could have held that probe out, but a little bit of this micromanagement.
Okay, so this GTR in chat says they were hiding their faces because they were skipping study sessions to watch murder. Some were, but also faces. A lot more. It was a much more reserved culture back then. This is really good. You project from your diaphragm more. So it's like being able to sing. You're using a muscle. It's like right below. It's kind of around where your solar plexus is. You're flexing it and you're pushing the air out where your voice will resonate without you having to shout. So if you listen to people casting, I'll turn myself up for a second here. Sure.
Yeah, Stork doesn't always play by the norm.
So what I'm doing there is trying to shout.
But I think he will be going for that this time. We have
You notice Artos is always projecting from his diagram, so he's not
Need help?
There we go, a second gas, so he's definitely going something pretty gas heavy, and there it is, the start gate.
Here, let's wait for me to talk again.
Very well.
Well, now we got to see what Jaden's going to do. LTD is going to go actually force their Dark Tower. With some sellers.
So, this don't sound good.
People like Misu's going to
My voice isn't deep. It's why, if you listen to my old stuff, I sound either like this or I sound like I'm dying of emphysema. And that's because I blew my vocal cords out in the previous cast. Like, doing this event, I would
Good
go
day
on
to
the
you.
plane and you could barely, I could barely talk because I was screaming.
We do our short playing really quite immaculately.
again another shot if you're just not joining us.
Yeah, if you want to learn to project from your diaphragm, you can take a singing lesson. You could probably learn on YouTube, to be honest.
Maybe more.
Have a good
Basically, I can talk.
Where would you like to fly?
See, like, where I would
Idiots.
No harm.
And I could do it for hours and I'm fine. There's a used to be stressed out in my early career because I would sometimes sound like shit. People would be like, "Oh my god, are you the guy that's like going to talk during this show?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have."
Coming down here.
This was, this was a big. I don't know if it's a gaming website or what, but this was big back then. Never known about this.
China.
I don't know if it's still up now.
They just have so many people coming down here to watch this, and it's not just StarCraft.
Yeah, was that a replay site, GTR?
It's all these games.
And esports,
Oh, I forgot what I was mentioning. So I was talking about finals, best of 5 versus best of 7. Best of 5, you're more likely to get a 3-2, which is better TV. Best of 7, you're more likely to get like a 4-1 or 4-2, which is not as good TV. The other issue with WCG and this being is
Next round of play. So round number 6, can FlyQuest
testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. It's not lagging on here. What about YouTube? These are the things that actually matter. Man. Where? Testing 1 2 3. Man. Where? Test 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 a test test a test test. Testing 1 2 3. Man. Where? Test 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 a test test a test test. Testing 1 2 3. Man. Where? Seems fine. I don't know why it's struggling on here. Man. Where? Testing 1 2 3. Man. Where? Alright, let's try reloading this one more time and see if it freaks the fuck out or not. Where? Alright, let's try reloading this one more time and see if it freaks the fuck out or not. Where? Mm. Seems fine. Jesus, man, are Havoc Demon Hunters that oppressive? Yeesh. I did that one. Oh, this is same balance druid. Epic Demon Hunter is the best in the game. Yep, that's why I don't play that shit.
Your body looks worn and your spirit weary. Rest yourself beneath our roof and allow Elune to guide your dreams.
Really, the downside of... Fuck, man. Now I have to go across... I should do the Ashenvale event. Is what I should do. Actually, is that going to give me... No, I should do the Stranglethorn event. Well, I should go ahead and do the Ashenvale event.
Where would you like to fly to? Good luck, friend.
Ooh. Battle for Asheville and Asheville Wait, what?
Where would you like to fly to? Farewell.
Stealth. globally, yeah. I guarantee. I'm sure there are countries where women are getting paid like cents to the dollar, but
not in the West or not in the United States.
I can't really speak for any other country, but I don't think. No, I don't really think so.
And I mean,
I'm not
when
saying.
do you think that? Because you would I think you would say that, at least historically in the U.S., perhaps as recently as 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that.
For example, Barack Obama, and I think one of his speeches, or perhaps the State of the Union address, he did say that there's still, he said that there's a wage gap. I don't remember the exact numbers he gave. I often hear 77 cents on the dollar, 83 cents on the dollar. And that was as recently as the 2010s. He was, President of the United States was saying this. So
yeah, I think that.
When do you think it disappeared, if it did?
I don't know if it's fully disappeared. I think that legislation has been introduced over the years multiple times. Prior to the 1900s, I really have limited knowledge, but the Civil Rights Act in part addressed unequal pay. So there is legislation that mandates equal pay for equal work for men and women. Whether or not that always happens in practice, I don't know. I can definitely see that there could be situations in which it's probably not put into practice.
What about, for example, in sports, for example, I have heard complaints from feminists who will say, for example, that women in the WNBA or female soccer players, in fact, there's actually a lawsuit by I believe it was the women's national team filed a lawsuit that they were alleging that they were being paid less than their male counterparts. Do you think that, for example, and it certainly is the case that female basketball players are paid less than male professional basketball players? Do you object to that? Do you think that there's
No, I mean, I think that it is based on viewership, and whether or not I object to the whole, it sucks that women's sports, no one cares about them. Yeah, that's sad to me. I don't really care about either gender sports. But yeah, I think pay is going to be based on how much money you're making for the for whoever they're making money for. I don't know. With soccer, I'm not really sure, because I feel like women's soccer is pretty popular, but I don't know. I don't think they should necessarily be paid the same, though.
And then just the last thing here, at least from my topics, I don't recall if it came up in our conversation. Perhaps it did, but it seems to me, like you said, you're a feminist, you believe in equality. What are your thoughts on military conscription and the current state of things in the United States, where only men have to register for the selective service and only men are subject to forced military conscription? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that could definitely be an example of a way in which the patriarchy negatively affects men, because men have been tasked with enforcement, with protecting law and order and our interests, and
they're the only ones who can, right?
Yeah.
5,
so I mean,
4, 3,
so
2,
then why shouldn't
1.
they give themselves additional privileges, knowing that you cannot defend their rights while they sleep, but they must defend yours?
Well, there are women in the military. I mean, there might not be as many, but there are women in the military.
But if they decided tomorrow not to allow women in the military either, this is something which they could do. Why not just give themselves additional privileges based on the fact that you cannot protect them while they sleep? They have to protect you, and we're not ever going to go to an all-female military. That would be absurd, and we would lose. So
okay, why don't women give themselves extra privileges for doing the majority of the housework and child rearing? Okay, so if you're asking why should they or shouldn't they, your answer is because they can?
Well, in this particular case, I'm saying to you, men, since they can do this, right? And you agree that they can do this, what would be the imperative for why they don't do this?
Because I think it would be unfair. I think it'd be unjust. Because I think there are also ways in which women put in an additional amount of work. I mean, whether or not you want to argue that they're equivalent, women do the majority of the housework and child rearing, even working women.
If it's justice, and justice is about what's fair, then I think it's unfair that women don't have to sign up for selective service, and I think that it's unfair that they're always, for the most part, going to be held to a lower standard in enforcement roles than men. That's unfair. unfair. And since that's unfair that they're allowed to go in and get the same pay as a private in the Army, as a male private in the Army, or a male lieutenant in the Army, I think it's fair that they get the right to vote. It's fair that women don't.
Okay, but I mean, that doesn't change that there are things that women are doing that men can't do.
What?
Give birth.
Well,
Okay, go.
I was just going to say, though, the difference is that one is enforced by the government. Like, there's nothing that
Okay, yeah,
a woman...
if we keep it to selective service, yeah.
Right. A woman, if she was so inclined, could go her whole life without... She could not have
Nothing's
sex.
forced. Nothing's pressed in.
Yeah. Well, then I mean, if it's between that and you know, men taking away all our rights, yeah, sign me
It's
up for
not
the
men
draft.
taking away all your rights.
Okay, well, I'm just saying
What, do you think that women didn't have any rights before they couldn't vote?
No, but I mean, they certainly didn't have as much of a say in it politically. But anyways,
they did
okay,
have
selective-
as much of a say politically. They just were able to do it from a moral high ground rather than as a voting bloc.
I don't want to get too off topic.
Okay.
I do have thoughts about that. No, I do think it is an example of a way that men are held to a different standard. Yeah, I mean, if you want to say it's because of biology,
And so
then
would
what are you
it
gonna
not
do?
be just then for men to give themselves additional rights, like the
No.
right to vote?
No,
Why would that not be correcting an injustice?
because there are ways in which women are, like I've already said, are putting in an additional amount of work. Is the difference for you
What
that
way? What way are
already
women
said
putting in an additional amount of
child
work?
rearing, domestic labor?
Okay, so
I mean,
when it
while
comes
men,
to child rearing, first of all, men are 50% responsible for the children.
they're 50% responsible,
say-
but they're not actually in numbers. If you look at the statistics, they are not putting in the same amount of hours.
No, they put in all their hours at work taking care of their families.
Even in families where the mother is working as well, the mother is still doing the majority of the housework and the majority of child.
That's because he's still doing the
activities.
majority of the physical work. So in most in most two-parent households, the man still works longer hours and makes a higher wage than the woman does.
Even in those households where they are doing comparable hours outside the home, the woman is still doing more hours inside the home.
Yeah, I know, but that would just equal out. If the man works 10 hours and she works 6 and then takes care of the household, then it's equaled out. You would still have this additional privilege problem of men having to get drafted and protect you while you sleep because they're the only ones who can enforce rights. And you say, but it's still women are putting
in the military right now. Why would men as a whole?
Well, they don't fight in the military. They're not in combat roles for the most part.
So why would men as a whole deserve special privileges for having to sign up for selective service when only some men are going to ever see combat?
Well, then, could we just give those men hang on. Can we just give them the right to vote then? Since they're the ones who ultimately are, I would be fine with that. Just those who signed up, men or women. Can we just give men or women who actually did some kind of service for the United States and the country the right to vote? That seems like an additional privilege that they deserve and what is just.
Because who's to say that fighting in the military is the most important thing of all?
Why would they need to only fight in the military? You could think of other types of services which they could provide for the United States in a, as a.
Well, yeah, but we're
servant.
saying that they should be the only people who can vote because they have signed up and seen combat.
No, well, because men can't vote if they don't sign up for the draft. They're not allowed. Mm-hmm. They're disqualified from the vote.
Okay, well,
so men are disqualified from the vote if they don't sign up for the draft. Women not disqualified from the vote if they don't sign up for the draft. So if we wanted it to be fair, why don't we give military personnel the right to vote? We'll do it men and women.
They do have the right. Do you mean only military personnel the right to vote?
Yeah.
Because
then if you're drafted, think about it. Because then if you're drafted as a man, you go into the military. Hey, now you have the right to vote. You have nothing to complain about, right? You were compulsed in, but now you have this additional right nobody else has. You can't get drafted, but you can sign up, and then you can get the right to vote too. Service guarantees citizenship.
Well, I just don't think that's the way we should run things.
Yeah, why not?
Because I think there are other important aspects
I don't know. It
of
doesn't
a
sound
society.
very justice-y to me. It sounds like you want a privilege that men don't have.
No, well, I already asked why should men as a whole get special privileges.
I just told you, I'd grant that they shouldn't. Only the ones that go and serve and the ones who get drafted in should be able to vote, and the same thing with women.
You think that's the way the country should be ran.
Yeah, well, what's wrong with that? Doesn't it seem like it corrects a great injustice, which is allowing all women to vote?
No, I think there
No?
are other injustices in the world. I mean, why say that? Why is that the greatest injustice that
I
we
didn't
should?
say it's the greatest. I just said
Well,
it's
then-
an injustice.
Well, then why organize our whole society around some random
You don't
injustice?
organize your entire society around only the greatest injustices.
Okay, why organize it around a minor?
You're not even
random
organizing
injustice?
it around that. It's
Well,
just
I would say
one
who
deviate
can-
from the
I
process
would
that
say
we have now.
I would say who can vote and who can't is central to a federal republic. That's
Yeah, but everything is. Having a Congress is. Having 200 or 400 people in Congress is. Having 3 people in the Supreme Court versus 10 is. Every part of the process is important. Not one part of the process is any more important than the other usually. So
okay. So it seems completely arbitrary to
it's
say
not
only-
arbitrary because you would be correcting for what you consider an injustice. So you have a
Okay.
process. Arbitrary means without process, right? You do have a process for justice. Your process for justice is that injustices need to be corrected. And you believe in justice, right?
I mean, sure. I
So
don't.
then it's not arbitrary.
It's an arbitrary way to correct the injustice.
Well, wait, okay, then correct the injustice. What would be the way? Other than to make
Have
women draft.
Women also have to sign up for selective service in order to vote.
But when women sign up for selective service, they cannot produce the same type of soldier that men can. So men are still disadvantaged. It's still not just because they're still not going to be able to perform under the conditions which are necessary, which women can.
I really don't think that. I mean, so if the only way to correct that specific injustice is to only allow people who have served in the military to vote, then, I mean, how do we correct historical, like, racial injustices? What do you propose we do?
They can still
for
join the
that?
military and vote. What do you mean?
But those have nothing to do with each other.
Well,
the
then,
fact
if
that-
they have nothing to do with each other, why did you bring it up like they were correlated? If you're looking for the correlate,
Well, I'm
then
saying if
who's barring anybody from
No,
a
I'm
different
saying
race
if,
from
if
joining
we're
the
going
military?
around correcting these injustices in society, why stop at the fact that only men have to register for selective service?
Yeah, I wouldn't. But my point is not whether or not you could then go and correct whatever else you perceive as an injustice. You still could. I'm just saying this is an injustice that we agree is not just. This is something we can actually agree is not just.
Yeah.
So then how can we correct for it? If you say women should also sign up for selective service, that really doesn't correct for it because they still cannot go into these combat theaters and perform like men.
They might not
so
be able to
men
go
will
into
always
combat.
be unjustly in a non-equal way put in these situations because they're the only ones who can be.
But, I mean, women can still... Are you saying the fact that men are the only ones who can see combat is unjust?
Because they're the only one. No, that's not the part that's unjust.
Okay.
The part that's unjust is if you're saying that it should be equal, that the draft should be equal, it still would not actually make it equal in service. Because what would end up happening
Equally
is that men would end up having to still take the primary role as combatants inside of the military, thus risking their life to kill far more than women, even if they were drafted. So even if we did the draft, it would still not be just for them to be equals.
I just don't agree. I think that righting the injustice would be just having women sign up for selective service.
Oh,
because
okay.
I mean, and then
So-
you could, and then just okay.
Even though clearly they're not going to be able to perform the same way men are, and so you're going to have to lean on men for heavy
don't lean
combat.
on men. Let women figure it out. I guess. Let women defend
Great.
the country.
I
We'll
can't
see how
wait.
it
Yeah,
works.
we'll send women to the front lines of combat. You think that's a great idea?
I mean, now
Soften them up.
with drones and things, I mean, I don't think it really matter.
You don't.
No.
Because we fight wars in the middle of the winter with drones and things.
Well, I don't think there's a lot of like hand-to-hand combat going on in the
Most
front.
combat is still infantry based. If you look at what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, yes, drones are deployed in combat. Yes, artillery is used. Still men on the ground with machine guns.
Oh, if you want to finish your point, I do have to move things on.
Yeah.
But okay, just last thing on that. So, are you in favor of equalization when it comes to military conscription?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna get into the super chat and Q&A section. So if you guys want, get in your super chats or your messages via Streamlabs here. We are gonna get through them. Before I do that, though, really quick, guys, just an announcement. We have another debate right after this. So after this is over, be sure to stay tuned. Andrew will be back with us. He's gonna debate again. Andrew, while we're getting through some of the soup chats, I'm gonna order us some food.
Excellent.
Are you getting hungry? Would you like us to get
Sure.
some? Any preference of food? We could get you something too if you want.
Do pizza?
I don't know. What's
Or is there like in and out around?
In and out's a bit far, but we could get you like rice and chicken. You want something like that, or
From where?
panic?
Like Chinese place?
There's places.
Rice and
Don't
chicken?
make me
How was rice?
Just kidding.
I want rice and chicken?
I don't know. Okay,
Want
anyways, we'll
beef,
figure it
bro.
out.
Beef.
I'll find you.
Money Kitchen has beef.
We'll yeah. We'll figure something. Okay, cool. So let's get into some of the chats here. Okay, we have David Treziak. Maximum respect to this woman's views and debate is important. You were right. Sunday Andrew was a song. Time of the Season by Zombies personally exists after they can exist outside of a woman. Thank you, David Treziak. Appreciate that.
They're not even people. They're just
Wait, what?
they're just things.
Wait, what?
No, these fetuses. You know, they're not even people. The day before they're slated to be born, it's not a person. It's a fetus.
We have Canada First. Brian, forgive me, but I think some of the wires caught on your foot. Okay, that's fine. Brian, forgive me, but I need to say it. She is pathetic, irrational, and believes women. Guys, be nice if you can. Okay, women don't have a fair shake of things. Also, hearing her talk like she gets to vote, that's scary. Also, on the whole like voting thing, Andrew brought it up. Some people in the chat are bringing it up. I just want to say the views expressed by the guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the whatever channel. I'm cool with women voting. I'm probably gonna get dragged for saying that, but hot take, it's fine. I'm for women voting. Sorry, Andrew.
I'm for correcting injustices.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. You know, just not trying to get canceled. Okay. Let's see. We have Anonymous here. One sec. Sorry, guys. It's coming up in just a sec. Respect to the woman debating and all religion aside, it's ignorant to think you can't be racist towards white people. Educate her on slavery, please. You guys want to go back and forth 2 minutes on that really quick, or did we already cover it?
I don't even think we really need to.
I do have something to say about the fact that white people have also been enslaved, and that you can't compare the enslavement of white people that happened throughout history, like the Irish and whatever, to like 400 plus years of chattel slavery. That was, I mean, like our whole conception.
Well, if I may jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
If I may just jump in.
It's a
Are you
bad
Irish?
history.
No, but I mean, the slavery of white people extends far beyond just what happened. Are you talking to the Irish in the United States?
Oh, when people bring up like, oh, the Irish have also been enslaved, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot more.
No,
I'm
aware that.
Yeah, the Barbary states.
No, I'm aware that slavery as an act, as a practice, has basically been practiced forever. As like prisoners of war, things like that. I'm talking about the system of chattel slavery in the United States. I mean, our whole conception of race, which we both agree is a social construct, is essentially constructed around slavery. Oh, you don't agree. You don't agree.
I never agreed to that. I just said your worldview is that it is.
Yes. Well, because it's constructed around the institution of chattel slavery as a justification for chattel slavery.
Race?
Yes, the conceptions of race in the United States. Like the conception of white supremacy in the United States. It is a justification for the incredibly important, at the time, economic institution of slavery. This sort of like, okay, well they're not human, you know, so we can continue this thing that we need so greatly for our agriculture and our industry. It's formed around slavery.
Okay, let's just grant it for a second so that, you know, we're on the same page. What the hell would that have to do with whites having been enslaved? What would it have to do with whites having been enslaved?
I'm saying that just the impact is far greater.
Than on whites being enslaved?
Yeah.
How in the hell could you ever quantify that?
Easily. I mean...
Then easily do it.
I've pointed out multiple cases of anti-black racism in the United States and policies that have kept black people in a subjugated economic position to white people. And I would argue that you could trace pretty much all of that back to slavery.
Okay.
Because, I mean...
But I still don't understand the argument. So, if you're saying to me that anti-white, and maybe we're speaking past each other, so I want to try to make sure I get this right. Anti-white racism can't exist because of chattel slavery being so much worse than whites having been historically oppressed via slavery.
I don't think that's necessarily why it can't exist, but... But I think that is one piece of evidence for... one piece of evidence for, I mean...
Everything on it.
When you have something like that going on for hundreds of years, it's pretty hard to compare the situations of two groups of people. When nearly every black person in the United States, unless their parents immigrated more recently, I mean, are descended from people who were enslaved. And very few white people in the United States, if any, I am really able to think have...
So like all the Nigerians who come over here from the last 30 years were all slaves?
Well, I was saying except for people who have immigrated from other countries more recently.
Yeah, but don't those people who immigrate in from those other countries, don't they have some kind of privilege that they can attach themselves to what is perceived as being a minority group, even though they did not suffer the same systemic oppression?
I mean, I would say colonialism was also pretty bad.
Oh, so everybody...
So maybe the Ethiopian immigrants...
Colonialism is a thing that we should be punished for, but shouldn't Africans, for instance, be punished for warlording with everybody else as well?
I think we should be punished for it. I think... See, that's another thing. I don't think it's about punishment or guilt. I think it's just about acknowledging the fact that this is a reality.
Well,
and
if you're
steps
correcting an
should be
injustice, see, it sounds like a punishment.
I mean...
So you say, for instance, if Nigerians come here, okay, in the last 30 years, and they attach themselves to a group where they don't have any historic oppression, none, but are able to benefit from it, isn't that actually minorities utilizing what you would consider the minority system to game it and possibly oppress whites?
No, I don't think so, because I think by virtue of moving to this country, you are perceived within whatever racial boundaries.
All those poor people were eating out of the garbage can the night before, and they go to the United States. I mean, do you think they feel super oppressed?
One quick back and forth from the both of you, and then we got to move on. But
yeah, all I'm saying is that the slavery that white people have been subjected to is not the same as chattel slavery. That specifically black people were subjected to. It's just not the same.
You just mean in the United States?
In the United States. They're not comparable.
All right. We have David Treziak. Personhood is a concept when the child is viable should never be aboboed. Okay. Third trimester schmorshins are so rare. 1 in 100,000 for mother's life. Feminization is a reason for birth decline for sure, though. Feminization is the reason for birth decline. Oh, show though.
I don't know. I'm not. Okay. I have no thoughts on that.
All right. Thank you, David. Good to see you in the chat. Thank you, man. Appreciate your patronage. The smartest man in the world says, if femmes want revenge for men's sacrifices for women, why shouldn't men immediately fill every national cemetery with an equal number of feminists and the bankers...
We'll skip that one.
Wait, what?
Skip it.
What? Oh, sorry. I don't like pre-read those.
Living _donated $200. Andrew, everything on it. Wilson has a face only Rachel could love.
That's true.
Brian, wow. Face looking thick over there.
Thanks.
You getting a salad? Tell me you're getting a salad. Yes, Andrew. I interrupted. Get over it.
You didn't actually interrupt.
Do I look red too? I think I
sent that chat in from my phone.
Tomato.
How does it feel that you didn't get a chance to interrupt me with your super chat, which you were attempting to interrupt me with? How does that make you feel?
This guy's serious?
But you are right that I have a face only my wife could love.
A smoke break?
Also, disavow the previous chat. I don't like pre-read these. I just pull them up and I start reading. Someone's gonna eventually... There's probably been a few times, right, Nick, where I start reading it and I'm like, uh-oh, okay, probably shouldn't read that. Hey, it's the nature of a live show. MC2100, Brian, tell the truth. 150 plus episodes and hundreds, if not 1,000 plus women on the show.
Oh my
Don't
God.
sugarcoat it. Are we screwed yet? Are we screwed? Well, we've definitely had, I think, probably, about 1,000 women on the show. Look, I think the thing is, though, is that there's a lot of women who come on the show who can stay quiet for a good portion of it. And I don't know, maybe they agree, they disagree. But I think there's plenty of great, wonderful women out there. But I mean, I do think the influence of, well, I don't know, I should try to be a bit unbiased since, well, it's the end of the show, fuck it.
Yeah.
I think the influence of feminism has not been
great
for, I mean, a variety of reasons. Obviously, we have a global sexual marketplace, dating apps, social media. The internet has definitely had an impact on dating and relationships, and also just people's mental well-being too. So are we screwed? I don't know. That's probably. Okay. Thank you, MC2100. Thank you.
Probably.
And then we have Sean here over on YouTube. Just a reminder, guys, by the way, if you get your last ones in, because we're going to, if you want anything read, we are going to wrap up here pretty soon. Although if you can do it, try to do it through Streamlabs, as YouTube takes their brutal 30% cut. But thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Not believing aborting a 9-month-old baby is murder is just evil.
2.
I don't know what is evil. How would you define evil?
It's the oppression towards minorities, right?
Is a fetus minority?
Hang on, is oppressing minorities evil?
Wait, what?
Is oppressing minorities evil?
No, I mean I don't think it's done with the intention of evil. No, I think it's just kinda,
Is anything evil?
That spell isn't ready.
in my own opinion, yeah.
What?
Murder, yeah, probably.
But not of a 9-month-old.
No, I don't think it's murder.
At 9 months?
No, I mean, because I think about if I was aborted at 9 months, I would never know. How is that evil? I would never know. I've never been alive.
Well, I mean, if you were in a coma and you were murdered, you'd never know either.
That's true.
CS, why when someone murders a pregnant woman, are they tried for the murder of 2 people?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to talk to whoever made those laws. I don't really think that makes any sense to me, but it's true.
All right, hold on here just a sec, guys. I think we're all caught up on the chats there. Do you guys have, while we do this, closing statements from the both of you? Closing statements?
Yeah, I can start.
Okay.
So I first thank you for coming out. It was fun to do. I hope you had a good time. I don't think it was super aggressive at all.
No.
Second, your worldview sucks, and you should probably change as fast as possible. But other than that, I appreciated the good and spirited back and forth. When it came to enforcement, I think that she's just never, or you've never even thought about this ever, not for a minute, as to who actually enforces rights, and that if there's social constructions, why we ought to even follow them, what good and bad really is, the dynamic of evil, these types of things. I just don't think that you've really engaged with too many of those things before, to be perfectly honest with you. So not to beat you up, right? Try to keep it nice and even keeled, but yeah, the worldview just sucks. So I would fix it. That's it.
My closing statement would be I'm very confident in my worldview, but I'm obviously still learning my epistemological standpoint, why I think certain things are right and wrong. I can't necessarily debate them as eloquently as Andrew, but very confident in my intelligence, my worldview, and also I don't think you're screwed, because I think that in real life much of this doesn't really matter, and everyone's pretty nice and normal, and yeah, I think everything is going to be fine.
Awesome.
Did you do the thumbs up?
Yes.
It's lame.
No.
Awesome. One sec, guys. So what's going to happen now is we are doing another debate here with Andrew, and I'm going to put the link for that. We'll if you guys want to stay, I'm in this live. We're going to do a redirect over to the waiting room for that one. We're aiming to go live 6:45, maybe at the latest 7. I'm going to spam the link in YouTube. Those of you who are watching on Twitch. Nick, can you pull up the Twitch tab really quick for me? And sorry guys, I'm having so much lag on my computer over here. So guys, go over to twitch.tv/whatever. If you're watching over there on Twitch, drop us a follow, please, if you can, if you enjoyed the show. If you're watching on YouTube, kindly open up another tab. Drop us a follow over there on Twitch. Drop us a Prime sub if you have one, if you enjoyed the show. And those of you on YouTube, those of you on Twitch, just stay over there on the whatever channel. There will be an intermission. We'll be offline for about 30 minutes maybe, and then we'll be back with another thrilling debate with the debate goat, the debate god, Andrew Wilson. Sorry guys, I'm just getting mods. I've put the link a few times in the YouTube chat if you want to just spam it a whole bunch. And I do want to let me see if there's one other thing here. Let's see. Oh, okay. So I would like to state again, the views expressed by the guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the whatever channel. And we will be live again, as I mentioned, in about 30 minutes. Andrew Wilson will be here debating someone else. Mods, if you can spam the link for that in the YouTube chat. I want to give a big thank you to both of you for coming and doing this debate, and give you a little extra amount of credit for coming in and doing this. We really enjoyed you on our dating talk, and I'm very thankful that we were able to get you back on this one. So, because I mean, it's you know, Andrew's he's been doing this for a long time, and I think, you know, I think we just for the dating talk, you're just on the street, you know. So, yeah, I want to give you absolute credit for coming in and, being open to debating some of these ideas with us. So I think that deserves some W's in the chat for you. So thank you very much. And well, GG, well played to both of you. Last call, hit the like button, please, on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you to everyone who super chats, donates, supports the show. And let me just make sure we're not missing any chats. We're good. Guys, the link, mods, please spam the link. Head on over to the other waiting room. 30-minute or so intermission, and we'll be back soon, guys. So thanks again for tuning in. 07's in the chat, and we'll see you soon.
Oh my god, I had the wrong fucking rune on.
It's too far away. I can't get to it. That spell isn't ready yet. I'm out of range. I can't get to it. That spell isn't ready. That spell isn't ready yet. That spell I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging.
Brian Atlas, a few quick announcements before the show begins. This podcast is viewer supported, heavy YouTube demonetization, so please consider donating through Streamlabs. Before the show begins, this podcast instead of super chatting, as YouTube takes a brutal 30% cut. So, some quick maths for all. If you super chat 100, YouTube takes 30. If you donate 100, Streamlabs only takes 3. Streamlabs.com/whatever. Link is in the description. Donations and super chats $10 and up will be displayed in Stream Overlay. Donations and super chats $100 and up will be read/answered. If you want to interact nearly instantly with us and weigh in on the debate, consider sending a TTS text to speech message. $200 and up triggers TTS. TTS is via Streamlabs only.
Fuck.
The views, quick disclaimer, guys. The views expressed by the guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the whatever channel or myself. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right in. We're going to have the guests introduce themselves. So Andrew, why don't you start off?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible. It's the fastest growing debate channel to my knowledge anywhere on YouTube. I'm a political satirist. I do political commentary, and I also do Bloodsport debates.
My name is Renee. I'm currently a second-year student at UC Santa Barbara, and I'm a political science major.
All right, welcome to the both of you. Good to have you back in studio. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we did have you on the dating talk. Was it on Sunday?
Yes.
Was it? Okay. And that was I think that was one of our best shows that we've had you on, Andrew.
That was a good show.
It was a very good show. Can't say the same about
last one.
the last one, but we're not going to get into that. But
got a lot of positive feedback on that show, though.
The last one? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think a good place to start off with for this conversation, you guys did tend to disagree quite a bit during the Dating Talk podcast. So I think we ought to start there. What do you guys disagree on?
Would you like to start?
Well, let's start with what informs your worldview.
Okay. What informs my worldview?
Yeah, so if you're doing a debate is going to be informed in your positions by what the worldview is, the prism in which you're looking through. So this would be the eyeglasses you're zooming in on in order to see the world. So for you, maybe it's a utility. I'm just throwing these out, by the way. Maybe it's a utilitarian framework, or maybe it's a religious framework, or maybe it's you see everything through a secular framework, or there's all sorts of different worldviews which can be applied. I just wanted to kind of see what yours might be.
I'd say I hold multiple overlapping worldviews at once.
Okay.
Can I ask you the same question?
Yeah, but what's your worldview? And I'll get into mine right after you.
I don't really think I can give a comprehensive statement on my full worldview. I'd say, based on the terms that you were throwing around, I wouldn't classify myself exactly as this, but I'd say I generally do prioritize utilitarianism, or maximized utility for all the people in a society.
And does that operate off of a harm principle?
Yes.
Okay, and so harm is utility. So if you're using the harm principle, just real quick, you just think of what kind of like generally consider harm.
The harm principle dictates that the government should only prevent people from doing something if it is going to inflict physical harm on another person. That's John Stuart Mill's harm principle.
Yeah, but I mean, so that's Mill. Bentham also was part of utilitarianism.
Yes.
So Bentham had a hedonic calculator, and so what he would do is he would say X amount of harm based on not maximizing pleasure. So another way of saying it would be like maybe suffering. If you're not maximizing pleasure, then that's some form of suffering. So I just want to get the specifics down.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. You're pointing me towards hedonism, right? Kind of, sort of. I wouldn't say that I prescribe particularly to Bentham's idea of the harm principle. It's more so just Mill's, and I wouldn't even say I fully agree with the harm principle being used as the only backing for laws. But
okay.
I think as it stands today, that's like generally accepted, especially in the American conception of rights.
Harm?
Yeah, harm principle, I think, leads a lot of it.
Okay, and so you're specifically talking about governing, and you're saying from this perspective, government can only do things which stop physical harm from being perpetrated on somebody else.
No, I didn't say that. They can do a lot of other things. I was saying usually when it comes to conceptualizing laws, rights, liberties, etc., whatever you want to call them, it's on the basis not of how much you're helping someone. It's on the basis of whether or not you're going to harm someone physically. And if your action can harm someone physically, then it will be they'll enforce the law upon you.
So how does this differ from utilitarian or libertarian with like the non-aggression principle?
The non-aggression principle, I'm not familiar.
So it's just saying that your rights in where you could possibly be doing something bad to somebody else or infringing on your rights.
I don't have a full knowledge on that, but
it's just like you can't. Let me see if I can frame this better. So the non-aggression principle would be nobody has the right to be aggressive to anybody else. Okay, they can't aggress in a physical way. Okay, or interject themselves in a physical way. And if they do, then you can respond in a defensive manner, but you're not allowed to aggress. And so it just sounds like when we're saying harm, physical harm, when you're talking about governing, it kind of sounds like a non-aggression style principle.
I thought that it was... I was under the impression it was the same thing, basically, the two things you just described. Non-aggression, harm principle.
They're in opposition to each other. Because harm can be defined external of just harm, or physical harm. So, for instance, you can have policy, discriminatory policy, but there's no physical harm.
In Mill's conception, he only is referring to physical harm, I believe.
Okay, I get it, but I was just explaining the difference between the non-aggression principle being in opposition to utilitarianism. That's all. So I was just asking if they sound similar to you or what. So you see your worldview is utilitarian and harm.
Yeah, I'd also say I'm rather individualistic on priorities on like Enlightenment ideals, individual choice kind of thing.
Okay. So John Locke stuff.
In the context of the discussion regarding gender, yes.
Cool. All right, so my worldview is...
Nothing.
Oh. My worldview is Christian ethics, and my political persuasion would be something that would be akin to Christian populism. Sometimes this is referred to by the left as Christian nationalism, but there's a lot of conflation. So Christian nationalism can mean 100 different things. Okay, Christian populism just is stating emphatically that there needs to be some kind of grounding morality for the government, and that can't operate in a secular framework very well. And so you appeal to something which is arbitrary and ends up being far too individualistic. So essentially, that would be the summarization of the position.
Okay.
Do you have like any questions that you want to ask on that, so you get the worldview down?
Let's see. So that what distinguishes your view from Christian fundamentalism?
Well, I'm not sure what Christian fundamentalism is.
Oh, well, I guess I'm not too sure either. I mean, like, that generally just like, maybe I'm incorrect about what it is, but what I thought it was like basically just the belief that the government should be completely ruled on the basis of scripture. No, so the Orthodox belief that my worldview ascribes to is that there should be what's called symphonia, or a synergy between the church and the state, meaning that the secularist view would believe in a line dividing the church and the state. Church is over there doing its thing, state's over here doing its thing. They're separate entities. Symphonia would say that it's just fine to have religion inform politics, and in fact, we probably should have religion inform politics, and that having churches involved politically is not bad. How do you decide which church informs politics? Well,
whether we would make the distinction of which specific church, let's just say I want it to be the Orthodox Church, this church. The fundamental question starts with, should any church, or should a collection of churches, or should there be allowed to be any kind of religious foundation when it comes to governing? And I don't see a big problem with it.
You don't see a problem with religious foundations for governing? What about when different religious groups are within one nation?
What about when different secular groups are?
I mean, which religion would the whole state ascribe to?
Which secular religion does the whole state subscribe to?
It's based on a democratic process of voting.
I mean, it's not but there's secular interest groups, right? So all of them are vying for power. They're still secularists. Maybe some believe in secular humanism. Maybe some believe in some other form of maybe Satanism, which is a secular belief. There's all sorts of different secular beliefs which exist that people can ascribe to.
Can one hold multiple secular beliefs with different interest groups? Can one hold multiple religious beliefs beyond different religions?
Yeah.
Across different religions? All right.
Can one do that? Sure. Should one do that? I'm not so sure. That's a different question.
All right.
So, yeah. So anyway, so that's my position. But maybe we can start with the idea, because this was an easy one that you threw out there, of gender. And we can compete, and I think you'll get a better feel for my worldview and me for yours based on that conversation. You're talking about trans rights.
Trans rights? That's an interesting one to jump in first. I don't...
Oh, okay. We're staying away from that? Okay. Can we talk about gender at all? Or no? We can just, I guess, stay clear of it.
I want to talk about gender. Let's see. I was going to ask you what the basis of your distinction between the fundamental differences of men and women are besides physicality.
You mean besides biological?
Yeah.
They're ontological.
Biological.
Yeah, besides biological. So you said besides physicality, right?
Yes.
So I would go to ontology. Say there's an ontological distinction between men and women and a biological distinction between men and women.
Can you describe that ontological distinction?
Yeah, so ontology is just like being, right? It's just like the state of being. What is being? What is that? And I would say that especially when you're looking at reproduction, and when you're looking at the different ways that women behave regardless of the societies in which they're in, that there is definitely a thing which makes a woman distinctly from a man. So they're not interchangeable widgets, in other words. That's how I would view it.
Okay. So, what makes you believe that one of those is more fit to lead than the other?
Okay, well, that's a conflation of gender versus sex. But if you're talking about what makes you think men should be able to lead over women,
what do you think personally makes them more capable of leading than a woman?
well, it's not even capability, though, that would come into it. It comes down to a matter of force. So men have a monopoly on force, so they can take away rights and they can give rights, but women can't take away rights and women can't give rights. Only men can do that.
And you're saying the monopoly of force is based purely on physicality and biology?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you're talking about, you mean physical attributes?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yes, men are far stronger, have larger skeletons, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially, they're the dominant sex for that reason.
Have you ever met a female police officer?
Sure.
Would you say that she has the same ability to enforce the law as a male police officer?
No.
Why not? They both have guns. Wouldn't you say a gun is an equalizer?
Sometimes, unless the man also has a gun, and then it's unequal again. So the problem is even then, you still run into other problems too, which is when men can apply physical force up close and personal, guns become useless. And we see this all the time when male police officers end up in engagements with women and men. They seem to be able to handle those engagements fairly well, though sometimes they're overpowered by men. Women, on the other hand, have a much harder time handling physical engagements, and they can't always just move right to their gun, right? They're supposed to control a situation. External that's the last resort. You don't want to go straight for the handgun, but unfortunately they can be surprised very quickly. So even during a traffic stop, something like this, they don't have nearly the ability to defend themselves that men do, for sure. And the standards get lowered, in fact, so that they can even get a job as a cop. So.
Oh, interesting take there. The first thing I noticed you said was that a man with a gun and a woman with a gun would not be equal.
That's correct.
Personally, I would say that I disagree with that because it's about the maximum amount of force they can exert at each other. If they're both standing a foot away from each other and the most powerful thing they can do is shoot the gun, then they both have the same maximum amount of power. You could argue that a man is more physically capable if they're hand-to-hand combating, but you could also argue, okay, what about a 5'5", 100-pound man with a gun next to a 6 foot, 200-pound woman with a gun?
I can't use that. You ever used a handgun?
No, but I just
asked
asked you a question.
Yeah, no, but
Okay.
and I'm going to answer it, I promise. Have you ever used a rifle?
No, I've never used any kind of gun.
No, okay. They're complex machines, and they require physical strength to use well. It's not like the movies where you just point it a direction, you pull the trigger, and the bullet magically hits the target. Guy's diving on the table, he's doing this number, you know what I mean? He's spinning around with the handguns, pulling the trigger, and everybody's dying. That doesn't map onto reality. Guns use blowback, and they're not easy to wield. Not for men competently or women. It takes practice. But men are much better able to control recoil. They're much better able to control the actions on guns. They're much better able to reload. Their physical strength means a great deal. Even in action reloading speed, it means a great deal. So they're still at an advantage even if you're both armed.
So do you think women deserve a right to own a gun?
Yeah.
You just expressed to me that you believe women would be more incompetent as compared to a man when it comes to learning how to expertly handle a gun.
So?
Wouldn't you see that as like a safety concern? Or?
No.
I can't cast that yet.
Okay.
Would there not also be discrepancies among men, though, comparing one man to another, too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't really understand
That,
the
which
argument.
is why his point doesn't make any sense at all, because he just admitted that anyone can be bad at using a gun or good at using a gun.
Yeah, we're just talking about averages. So if you're physically stronger and somebody's physically weaker, you're going to be more prone to be able to use a gun well than the person who's physically weaker. That's just the truth.
Okay.
It requires physical strength to utilize it. It's like, think of it like, it's not a direct one-to-one, but it'd be like wielding a sledgehammer. Would you say somebody who's stronger would be probably better than somebody who's weaker wielding a sledgehammer, even though that's not always going to be the case?
That one is pulling a trigger and receiving the pushback, and one of them is actually wielding with force behind it.
Well,
so
it's
that's
not. One is loading a spring-loaded magazine that has significant amounts of pressure behind it. It's under pressure because it has a spring. You're dealing with a gas-operated blowback weapon. So not only are you dealing with the recoil, but you also have to realign your shots. And you have to do all of this within a matter of seconds. Reloading, same thing when it comes to muscle memory. And physical strength for rifles even is a massive deal. Just clearing a jam inside of a gas-operated weapon can require significant strength because you can have shell expansions. So it's like over and over, physical strength definitely matters. And it also matters how much ammunition you can carry.
Okay, so if there's a bunch of shorter, weaker men, what is stopping the military from conscripting taller, stronger women who would like play for the WNBA or something?
They could.
Then you just prove that women can enforce rights as well.
No, you would still end up with men enforcing rights. It would be men who would enable those women to go after those short, dorky, weak men or whatever.
Well, how are the men enabling the women if the women can also bring up arms? How... You said the men are enabling them to use the guns?
Yeah, well, men build all the guns, and the military is staffed by men who run it. So those men would be enabling those women to then get armed and be huge and whatever.
They already did that when they invented guns.
No, they didn't do that. Inventing guns created an instant equalizer between men and women with force because both men and women can use guns and men use them better than women.
Your argument for why men deserve more rights than women is because men can use guns better than women can.
When did I argue that?
Correct me if I'm wrong then.
Yeah, you're wrong. I didn't argue. That wasn't my argument.
Please alter what I just said to fit your argument.
What happened was, and this is what I got in my notes, you said, but can't women just use guns as an equalization to force? And I went into the reasons why that's not actually force equalization. How on earth you attributed that to, that's my argument for why men should have the right to vote and women shouldn't. I have no idea. I don't know where you came up with that.
Oh, sorry. I was kind of assuming based off of the last podcast. What would you say then is the reason why?
Well, let's stay away from the right to vote for now. Okay, we'll come back to it for reasons, right, that we discussed. We'll come back to it. And let's instead just look at force equalization. Okay, meaning who enforces whom's rights? Do you think that it's equal between men and women, rights enforcement?
I don't think men or women enforce rights. I think institutions enforce rights.
Well, so...
Men and women give away, or they concede things to allow that institution to have power over them when they enter a social contract with the government.
Does a room have power? Or do people have power?
People in institutions have power.
So then it's still people who have the power.
The institution is what is allowing them to enact their power.
Yeah, who gives the institution the authority to do that?
Also, the people.
So then it's just people who have the power.
Through institutions.
Yeah, but institutions have no autonomy, no consciousness, no nothing. That would just be people or the institution, right? Can you have an institution absent a person?
So you would say you have as much power as the President of the United States of America right now?
No, I would say that not even close.
His power was given to him by the institutions that make up the American government.
No, his power was given to him by the people. And
who created the institutions.
That's true, but they're the ones who empower it. And the same thing with the military protecting it. The institution itself has no power absent people, is my point. So it really just comes down to people. So if you were to say between men and women, which sex do you think enforces rights? Would you say it's more along males or more along females?
I'd say it's both.
Yeah, but more. Or is it exactly equal? You think there's really no delineation?
because of the nature of the citizen and the state relationship, all citizens in a society are equally giving up their rights for the purpose of the government to say, okay, we'll protect these rights if you give up certain other rights. So I'd say
I don't actually know what you're saying right now. What do you mean?
Let me try and rephrase that a little bit better.
Okay.
I don't think it's unequal as to who enforces the rights.
Okay.
I'd say men and women enforce them equally because they both have to give up some of their rights in order to live in the society that enforces the rights.
Which rights do they have to give up?
Well, I couldn't pull out a gun and shoot you right now, could I?
So you think that that's a right? That
Not a
you're giving
right,
up?
but, well, don't you not think rights exist anyway?
I mean, whether I do or I don't, that still wouldn't have anything to do with the previous statement of you gave up your right to...
You're giving up free will. You're giving up something. Yes, you're giving up something in exchange for rights, which is, yeah.
What are you giving up?
Free will. You're giving up, have you ever, like Hobbes' Leviathan, man in a constant state of war where they pursue their own individual selfish interests? We give that up in some part, not fully, but in some parts to agree with the government in a contract, we're not going to do these things if you protect us from other people who are going to do those things.
Okay, and who's doing the protecting?
It's people who are hired to the institutions by the government, paid with tax dollars that are funded by both men and women, so I'd say.
Like the United States military?
Yeah.
Would you say that that's mostly men or mostly women?
The military is not an enforcer the way that we've been talking about it, though. The police would be the enforcer the way we've been
Why
talking
would the
about it.
military be enforcers?
I mean, like,
Rights?
in terms of foreign matters. Because then you're not enforcing rights, you're enforcing, that's on an international scale, you're enforcing your nation's sovereignty.
Well, that would be enforcing the rights of the people.
That's the nation's right to sovereignty, that's not a people's right. They're
Well,
two
yeah, it
different
is.
levels
If
of
the
abstraction.
The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Isn't the United States military going to be enforcing your rights at that point if a foreign body invades?
They're not.
Aren't they protecting you the same way a police officer would be in that context?
But states aren't motivated to do that particularly just to protect my individual life. It's to protect the sanctity of a state as a whole because the state protects the rights of the individuals within the state.
So they're there to protect the state who's protecting the rights of you. So they're
Yes.
protecting your rights.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
And
Sure.
they're enforcing your rights.
I concede. What's the implication of that?
Well, is it mostly men or women?
In the military, it's mostly men.
Mostly men. And then in the police force, mostly men, mostly women.
I guess it's mostly men.
In fact, can you think of a single enforcement agency which is not mostly made up of men?
I don't know, maybe the Environmental Protection Agency?
The EPA?
That's an enforcement arm of the
Do they
government.
actually have an enforcement wing? Because like the IRS does. The IRS has an enforcement arm of the IRS. They carry guns, the whole 9 yards. But that's mostly the agents there, mostly them.
I'm pretty sure the EPA has to handle permits for businesses that are like polluting a lot.
Yeah, that wouldn't be enforcement. Though. Same
That is
thing with
enforcing a
war.
law.
It's not enforcement.
That is enforcing a law.
How is it enforcing?
If there's regulations on how much emissions a company can have, and the EPA is tracking their emissions and charging them or otherwise punishing them, putting them out of business, etc., for breaking those rules, then it's an enforcement of a law.
So if it's enforcement, this requires force that's entailed in the word enforcement.
Yeah, and
So what force are they using, or are they appealing to another branch to use force?
they're using the institutional force that's
Yeah, but
within
if
the
a business
agency
says,
from the
no,
government.
we're going to keep dumping our oil in this lake, right? Does the EPA themselves actually come out and physically stop them from dumping the oil in the lake, or do they send them a strongly worded letter is the question?
Probably a strongly worded letter. I think eventually people might come out and do things physically, and yeah, those people would probably be men, but I don't see the point of your argument. It's just
Well,
an
I haven't made
argument that men are physically
I
stronger.
haven't even made an argument.
Okay.
So I don't see how you can see the point. If I have any.
I'm not sure what you're setting up for, but I'm very curious.
Well, right now I'm just trying to figure out the delineation of who actually enforces the laws. The laws themselves, not people who write the laws, not people who make judgments on the laws, but the people who actually enforce the laws.
The government, the institutions that make up the government.
The institutions cannot enforce a law.
Okay.
People have to enforce a law. It's like saying the prison institution will make you go to your cell. The prison institution does not make you go to the cell. The guy with a nightstick makes you go to the cell, right?
But why does he have to do that?
What's his job? He doesn't have to do it.
Who gave him that job?
Well, in this case, it would be the prison.
Is that a government-owned facility?
Sure.
So he has a government job.
Sure.
So he has to
Well,
do
I mean,
whatever the government tells him.
Not the government, the people in the government who are in those institutions who then give him the mandate to do whatever the job is. The institution itself is just a building, right, or an idea. It's a conflation of people. So you're making a category of it. You're saying institution can enforce.
Okay.
It's people who enforce, and it's
The
people
people
who are the institution.
in the government enforce. And they, yeah, that's my...
Well, they don't always have to be in the government.
Explain yourself.
Well, like you can have a citizen's arrest, you can have, various things like this, where there's enforcement going on, but you're not a government agent of any kind. And you can enforce your right to self-defense without being in the government, right?
I disagree. The government is the one that gives us the right to self-defense.
So the government gives us a right to self-defense.
They delineate it, like I said, after the social contract. The people give the government, the people give the people in the government the right to enforce it.
Okay. So then last thing is, when it comes to rights themselves, do you think that rights exist?
It's a very interesting topic that you've given to me multiple times. I think, like you've said many times about different axioms and stuff, no, they do not tangibly exist. But because the enforcement of rights has physical repercussions, I'd say that rights are something that exists in various societies, governments, legal codes, constitutions. They're present. But yes, they are
As a
intangible.
concept.
They're intangible.
Yeah, so they're just conceptual?
Yes.
They don't actually exist as part of any type of physical reality. They're just ideas that we will follow.
Same thing with the Bible, but yeah.
I mean, sure, you can say that. I'm just asking specifically, they're just ideas though, right?
Yes, just like the Bible is just ideas.
Okay, it's just ideas. So if that is the case, then these ideas for rights, which do not exist, and then these men who are mostly enforcing these rights who do exist, men, you would say, would be the rights enforcers. They would have to be. There's mostly men who are enforcing rights, and under this ideal or idealism that you have, that we should follow rights, you would need to have people enforcing them. Those are mostly going to be men enforcing rights.
I feel like we've talked in a circle here, and I think the fundamental disagreement is that I believe women are just as capable of men as enforcing rights, and I don't think that physicality is a valid enough argument to argue against it.
So then can you tell me why it is that there's never been a case in the history of all of mankind where women have collectively enslaved, or men, but men have always been able to collectively enslave women?
It's because men are physically stronger.
Well, then what are you talking about? Women are just as equally capable of enforcing their rights.
Because guns are an equalizer.
Yeah, but we've already distinguished that they don't make you equal to a man just because you have a gun.
We disagreed there.
Okay, well then can you explain how somebody's better apt and can carry far more ammunition and handle a weapon better, how it's equal to a person who cannot?
First of all, like we said, there are many exceptions to that case. There are many women who could probably carry more ammunition than a small, weak man.
Yeah, but those would be exceptions which would make the rule that most women are not as good at it as most men. Also, women do not make guns. They don't create them, they don't manufacture them, they don't draft them. They, for the most part, stay completely out of the industry. There's almost no women working inside of the gun industry as far as the production end of it goes. Some in the sales end, but they don't even produce the weapons. So same thing when you're talking about tanks. Tanks also require a higher amount of physical strength, male tank crews are going to do better than female tank crews. And this is because you have to put on treads, and you have to put in shells, and you have to carry heavy shit all day. So it's not really just saying, well, a woman can carry a gun. I don't really understand the argument, because yes, men also carry guns, but can do so much more than that with the guns.
5, 4.
Okay, well, it's just
2.
I've proven that women can be enforcers, even if it's less well than men can be, right? Would you concede
to that? Yeah, but then
that?
that would mean, if that's true, that men can utilize force even against
You're a badass,
enforcer
babe.
women and take away their rights. That's the point.
So do you think, like, a man who is able to escape the grip of a female police officer, you think he's just going to be free for the rest of his life and never get a right, never get it enforced onto him? Yeah.
Men are going to come get him. Men who enforce rights are going to come get him. But generally speaking, yeah, women and men cannot equally enforce rights. There's no, I mean, there's never even been an example of it, ever. It's never happened once. So my argument would be to you that if tomorrow collectively men said women have no rights, they would not. And if collectively women said men have no rights, they still would, because women would be unable to enforce that mandate, whereas men could.
That's false, because they could at least partially enforce it. There would be a war between the genders if we can both own guns.
I don't think that there would be, as if you take a look at some of the historic examples, including overseas, there have been many instances where women can own guns and have guns, but if men take their rights away, what good are your guns? What are you going to do? Collectively, women, there's no possible way for them to put up a fight against men. It can't be done.
And do you think men would take women's rights away tomorrow?
They do it all over the world all the time, don't they?
Then why don't they do it here?
Well, so this is a conflation of two different questions. Whether or not they do it here, we're arguing right now on if they could do it here.
If they could do what? Sorry, I got.
If they could collectivize and just take away women's rights.
Yeah, could they?
Yeah.
Okay. Then why don't they?
Yeah, but that's not, again, asking me why doesn't thing happen
I'm just asking you about your opinion at this point.
Has no necessity as
why
to whether
do you
or not
think
it
men
could
don't
happen.
do that? Is it because of the feminist mind virus,
I can
or
get into that?
Okay.
But before I get into that, I still would like this question answered as to whether or not they can do that.
I don't think so, because women are objects of value to men. The women are
I'm sorry about what's gonna happen to you.
Run.
I'm Abigail.
Abigail, in theaters Friday. Rated R.
Here, sit down. I don't know if the stream is still going though. Hey, are we still live, folks? One in the chat if we're still live. I apologize. I don't know if you guys can see us or hear us. We had a internet disconnect. We're gonna try to fix this really quick. So I very much apologize. Give us just 1 minute. Okay, we're still connected. Yeah, that probably just needs to be reloaded. Oh yeah, we just reloaded. Go on, I think we're good.
I would concede that men have a monopoly over the use of physical force, but that doesn't mean they have a monopoly over the enforcement of rights.
Then who does?
Like I said, institutions, but it's not even just that someone has all the power
in most institutions.
That as a nation as a collective must enforce the rights of a nation.
Why must they?
Or not must they, but it's like what I was saying with the social contract stuff earlier. If a big enough group is dissatisfied with the way things are being run in the state, no matter what, there's usually going to be some sort of revolt, pushback, non-institutionalized protest.
Who usually fights in those revolts?
Who usually fights in those revolts? Men. Yeah.
So men are the ones who are either taking their rights or taking rights away.
For the physical revolts, see Susan B. Anthony during the fight for the 19th, she didn't need to shoot anyone, did she? There's such thing as political activism, nonviolent political activism. Would you say that political activism is not impactful on the nature of the institutions that make up our society?
Susan B. Anthony had almost no at the state level, every single state, almost without exception, where there was a referendum on the vote, they were not allowed to vote for their own voting rights. In fact,
that makes sense.
The anti-suffragettes demanded, the suffragettes demanded that they not be able to vote and that it instead be constitutionally enshrined because they had tried to allow them to vote before and it did not pass. So no, Susan B. Anthony did not utilize great political activism.
Moving past that one case study, women are capable of political activism? Yes or no?
Sure. As long as men allow them to be. That's my claim, is that all enforcement is allowance. So anything that women are allowed to do as an external force anywhere in the world is because men are necessarily allowing that to happen.
That argument is based purely on physicality.
That's
it's saying
correct.
basically at any time, because a man could physically overpower a woman, he could just kill her and prevent her from doing anything. How is that an argument for a woman having less rights than a man?
The argument would also move to men as well. So it would also be saying that men can do the exact same thing to other men, and they can do this to women.
I would agree with that.
But women can never do it to men.
Okay, what about women to other women?
I need to get closer.
Then can't they enforce rights?
You mean, can they enforce their rights against other women?
Yeah.
Sure, but they can't against men.
Okay.
So, I mean, ultimately, all we're establishing is that men enforce rights and that women cannot enforce them. So since that is the case, I do not believe that they're equal. Since they are not equal, then it becomes like, why should we allow women to have these rights if we have determined that they shouldn't?
Do children deserve rights?
Yeah, there's a moral argument to be made there, I think. But like, do children get the right to vote?
True. But I mean, well...
They tend to frown on that, right?
Typically. But the argument is that someone shouldn't have to think, oh, my rights aren't going to be enforced simply because I can't enforce them. What about disabled men? Do their rights not deserve to be enforced in society?
Yeah, men can take that away from them. They could.
So you're saying a disabled man is the same as a woman?
Yeah, I'm saying that if you have that all rights essentially become yours, then you can chop it up either which way you want. You can make as big of a group as you want, or small of a group as you want. However you want to chop it up, you can do. You can do it with only all men, medium-sized men, or small men. Ultimately, it's going to be men who are getting rights.
But see, you've pointed out multiple exceptions to the rule. What if we remove all the exceptions and just say the strongest 50% of the population? It's not going to be all men.
That would still be men.
And, well, okay. Well, let's say.
There's no way around it.
No. Well, no. There's definitely a multitude of men out there that are women. Okay, I'm bad at math, honestly. But what I'm saying is like.
Yeah, you want to revise that?
You can't. Why would, if you're basing it on biological physicality, then why does it have to be between the two genders if there are women that are stronger than smaller men? If it's based purely on the use of force, why don't we just base it on who's most capable of using force, like the Olympics or something?
Here, take this. I don't know what the fuck is, what is all that about?
There's a bit of white specks. I was just trying to.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
What the OCD, Brian?
Sorry, I'm just being. I don't want people to think you got dandruff and shit.
Why would you use sex as the determining force if you've already admitted that there are people who break the exception and there are women who would be stronger than some men?
Because no matter
why don't you just choose the strongest people from each
because
society?
the strongest people from each society will still be the men.
Okay. But
just a little bit, please, Andrew. Please, just like on that side. Wait a little higher up. Just like there's little white puffs from the on the other side. The other side.
Ashes? What is it from?
You want? Can I do it?
Yeah, you
can
do it.
Can I do it?
Hold on. Welcome to the Letter Podcast.
Bro.
I'm sorry.
Are you serious? Is ash some ash freaking you out, dude?
Some cigarette.
What the fuck?
Some cigarette.
Anyway.
There was a little cigarette droppings or something.
All right, so back to the debate.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
okay, well.
Remind me to never get a barbecue stain on a white T-shirt around you, dude.
I'm the comic relief of
Yeah, this guy loses his fucking mind. He get a barbecue. He'd be like the whole time. He would never be able to enjoy the barbecue. He'd just be staring at that guy the whole time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true. But yeah, look at how sharp you look now. Hold on, wait, there's a little more.
Just a little more. Get it all, Brian.
You can just. It's
all right.
It's just dug in there.
That makes me want to like go smoke another cigarette just to flick it towards myself. But anyway, where are we at? Oh yeah. When it came to rights, yeah, we've determined even at the highest level, it's still.
I've already conceded that the monopoly of force, I guess, is with men. But, like I said,
then the monopoly of enforcement would be.
No, because the enforcement of rights is not purely physically done. It's also done by stigmas and other things that you've talked about before.
Yeah,
Ideas,
so stigmas.
social contracts,
Stigmas can move.
obedience to the institutions.
Sure, stigma and
What's the difference between anarchy and governmental state if the only monopoly of force is based on physicality?
Yeah, so stigmas, for instance, and patriotism, that could be a really good one to look at too. All of these things can definitely influence a worldview or a viewpoint, but that still is not going to change who's going to end up ultimately having to enforce the worldview or viewpoint. And it's not going to be women, it's going to be men. And this was the primary anti-suffragette, or one of the primary anti-suffragette arguments made non-feminist pre-19 was, look, one of the biggest problems is we're not fighting the wars. And we're not going to ever act as an enforcement arm in society. We're never going to physically. Now, there's some exceptions. Some few women can. That'll always be the case, but by and large, it's never going to be the case. gives them such a massive edge when it comes to enforcement.
Would you say that men who have never served in the military or the police force are not entitled to rights?
I think that you could make a good argument that if we were going to limit suffrage, the best thing that we could do to limit it would be to have some sort of public service that men and women both had to do. And if they were able to get through whatever that public service was, I think the military would be a great example, then they've earned that right. That way, somebody who's your age, for instance, who may not know as much as a person who's 50 or 60, can't negate their well-informed vote, but rather you had to go and you had to, in some way, earn it.
So you're very much like a civic duty Republican in that sense.
I wouldn't say it's a civic duty Republican, right? But I would say that if you're going to have a vote, if that is a system we're going to have, I don't see how it's even conscionable to just let everybody participate in it. Most people are remarkably politically uninformed. They have no idea about anything at all. Why should we let all of them do that?
Do you think we should have a literacy test?
I mean, I think
Before
you should
voting?
have a literacy test before you're even allowed to come in the country.
Okay.
And I think that, yeah, it would probably be a good idea to make sure that only literate people could exercise a right like that, for sure, right?
Yeah, so you're saying there should be some sort of intelligence test at the polls before someone is able to act out their rights.
I think that you could even dunk down to some type of average intel. I don't think you have to be super smart to, move into, to move into the right to vote. But what you do need to have is some kind of bleeding for it, right? So it used to be you had to own property, or there was other criteria that you had. Now there's nothing. So that idea that so many people can get rid of an informed vote, their uninformed vote.
So what do you think are the criterion that they should have to fulfill?
I think that they should have to do probably 6 years of mandatory duty to some kind of institution with no pay. And then they can have that right.
Okay, and you would be open to women doing that too?
I would, but just so you know, an entailment of this is that most would not.
Why wouldn't they?
Because they don't know. So when there are, and you can actually go country by country where this is true, where service is something which gives you additional privilege, women usually don't apply for whatever that is because they don't need to. What's the point? They still basically are pampered princesses in society, right? You're just negating them being able to, you're not even negating them. They could if they go through the same service process, but most of them don't.
Why are women pampered princesses in society?
Because basically men have taken care of all the infrastructure in such a way that all hardship is out.
Was that men's choice?
Well, I wouldn't say it depends. There's a bit of determinism when it comes to how men operate with inventiveness and you have capital, things like this. But yeah, I would say ultimately it's a choice. Sure.
So
just like it's a choice for them not to collectively enslave all women on planet Earth tomorrow. That's a choice. But still, if you look at the logic of it still seems that they could.
I would say that debunks any argument that I've heard that men have it harder because they have to provide for women. You just conceded that it's men's choice that they make women pampered princesses.
So when you're, this is actually a silly argument. Well, engage in it anyway. Because men make a choice, right, to feed their kid after the kid has acted out, he's been a shithead all day, but they give him dinner anyway, right? They make that choice. Did they do something? Did they do something bad by doing that? By feeding their kid and having the kid as a shithead?
No, but they did. No, I'm just gonna say no.
No, they didn't do anything wrong. They should, right? Actually feed that kid, right?
Yes.
Even though the kid did all sorts of shit they weren't supposed to do.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's a moral imperative that they feed the kid, right? So in this particular case, there can be all sorts of terrible, horrible behavior that doesn't just let them go out. It seems absurd on its face. But not only that, most men aren't looking in the way that we're discussing it. We're talking about infrastructure being a necessary facilitation for women's rights to begin with, which are men doing it. They just naturally gravitate to those jobs. They don't even think about the that women benefit from this infrastructure. They don't even think about that.
Okay, so you're saying it's a moral obligation for them to be merciful towards women and pamper them even when they're disobedient?
That doesn't mean to equalize them any more than they would a child.
It's too far away.
5.
Well, I have a question.
3, 2,
Unless you guys want to continue on this thread. Oh, okay, let me go.
Wait,
Okay.
can you repeat what you just said? Darn.
Okay. Well, I mean, just moving things forward a little bit here. You described yourself on the show as a black feminist. Can you explain that?
I might not.
That was trolling. Come on.
I might not have used it completely in the correct way that it's meant to be. I'm basically just an intersection. But black feminism as a field of academia is genuinely studied in a similar context or definition that I proposed with intersectional feminism. It just, I'd say it's more prioritized on the oppression of black women rather than other races.
So, can you tell me, so you're practicing intersectionalism?
Yes.
So, can you tell me which is more oppressed? A black lesbian or a Native American homosexual?
You can't quantify oppression.
I don't understand. What is intersectionality?
It's understanding the multiple cleavages that make up a person's identity in society, and yeah, not like breasts, cleavages, like political science word, like social cleavages, like let's say white, man, straight. Those are all different cleavages.
So, but just so that we're clear, blacks are not as oppressed as whites, or I'm sorry, whites are not as oppressed as blacks, right?
In America, I would say no.
Whites are not.
In America, yes.
Okay, so just so we're clear. Inside the United States, black people are oppressed.
Yeah, saying something is more than the other doesn't mean you can quantify it.
So then how the hell do you know it's true if it can't be quantified?
A lot of things can't be quantified. They're abstractions. It's based on someone's feelings, how oppressed they are.
So what you're saying is, it can't be quantified, but you just made it as a statement of truth that it is
If
factual.
someone walks up to you and says, you're an old white man, and spits in your face, that's an act of, oppression or discrimination or whatever, how are you quantifying that?
Well, I wouldn't say that I would be more or less oppressed than somebody else. You just did. You just said, this group is more oppressed than this group. That's a quantification after you just got done saying something that cannot be quantified.
You were comparing two individuals before.
No, I said whites. I said blacks in the United States are more oppressed.
Yeah,
than
but
whites.
prior to that, you were saying a black lesbian and a native, whatever, man, or whatever you were about to say.
Yeah, I know,
but those
you
are
said
individuals.
oppression can't be quantified.
For individuals. I mean, I would also say that for groups of people, but you can say historically there are trends of which races have been given more, like, obstacles in life.
But it can't be quantified.
Yes, person to person at least. Like, what are you going to say? Like, oh, I've experienced 350 acts of discrimination and they've experienced 360?
No, I mean, if it can't be quantified, then how can you say that whites are more oppressed than blacks? Or vice versa?
It's a historical trend based on the power that's vested in institutions to make laws that differently apply to different groups of people in society.
Yeah, I understand the explanation that laws which are entered against this group of people over this group of people. That sounds like you're quantifying it.
Okay. What number did I just quantify it with?
Well, I don't know, but I would think that if you had X amount of laws that you could count them.
Okay.
And then if you had X amount of laws on the other side, you could count those too. That would be quantifying it, right?
I don't have a full count of them, but I could give you a few examples.
No, but what I'm saying is that if that's true, that you can quantify laws, you can count how many laws were oppressive to this group versus how many laws were oppressive to
the thing is, it's not just laws. There's a variety of other variables that you're not taking into account.
Well, it sounds like if it's a variable, can it be quantified?
Yes, but you can't quantify all of them because there's just...
Well, which variables can't be quantified?
This just happens to be my belief. I'm being, like, idealistic. I'm saying there's ideas that oppress people. People are oppressed by their ideas that they hold in their day-to-day lives, and those cannot be quantified. So, you can go back and ask me the lesbian question if you like.
Okay, hang on. People have ideas in their daily lives which cannot be quantified, which oppress them.
Would you say if you had a conception of yourself, if you thought you were a woman, let's say you're still a man, physically, you're still completely a man, but you thought you were a woman, and you woke up every day thinking, yes, I'm a woman, I'm biologically a woman, whatever, I was born a woman, would you act the same as you do now?
Well, no, that would be impossible. There would be, if I picked up a penny every single morning, I wouldn't be acting the same way I do right now. Because I don't pick up a penny every single morning.
I'm saying, would you continue to carry yourself in the same manner you do now?
I wouldn't if I picked up a penny every morning.
If you thought you were a woman?
Yeah, no, but that would be true for any behavior. So any deviation behavior would make me...
How far would you deviate, though? Are you going to start adopting more womanly roles like you want women to adopt?
That is something there's no way to make a determination of.
I'm saying, theoretically, if you were a woman, would you change your behavior from how you act as a man? It's a simple question.
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
but that would be true of all behavior.
Oh, so the idea of being a woman causes you to change your behavior.
The idea of any change in behavior necessarily facilitates your behavior change.
Yes, so if ideas can cause people to change their behavior, ideas about who a person is in society can change their behavior in physical society. So, let's say people of certain race have...
manifest itself as X, and then quantify X? Well, so wouldn't that manifest itself as some type of grouping of laws or something like this which could be quantified?
It could after the fact, but I'm saying while it's in someone's head, that can't be fully quantified.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be basically trivially true about everything on planet Earth. Anything which is inside your head that would not ordinarily be inside your head, it would be trivially true. It would be different than how you are right now. Talking right now, regardless of what that was.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. So I don't
my
really
point
understand.
is,
It does sound like oppression can be quantified.
Oppression can happen through ideas, which are, you would see that ideas are not quantifiable.
So some forms of oppression, like things which are inside of your own head,
some forms
that
of
can be
oppression.
externalized in any way, shape, or form, so therefore we don't really know anything about them.
They can be externalized.
Okay,
I'm
how?
speaking right now on my thoughts inside my head.
Yeah, but I mean, if you were going to say, for instance, that you were a trans black woman, right? I mean, let's say a white person.
That doesn't make me a trans black woman, right?
Yeah, but no, but if you could externalize that with behavior, I mean, just like counseling. So we can quantify then how many of you there are, and whatever the negative side effects are based on joint experiences or whatever. It sounds like there's ways you could quantify that.
It's not realistic at all.
I don't see why, but I feel like we're lost in the sauce at this point.
Yeah.
So, moving on from there, I don't really know where the hell we were going with this, Brian. So.
I don't think he knew either.
Yeah.
Well.
Go ahead.
I mean, we were talking about why. Okay, you're talking about. I was saying ideas can oppress. Just trying to think of my greater point here. What were we talking about?
Here, I'll ask you a question. I can just ask you a question. So, I mean, you're a feminist. If my understanding is correct, your view is that in the United States, there's a patriarchy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Global patriarchy in all countries, essentially, perhaps stronger in other countries. Some countries have a stronger patriarchy than others.
Yeah.
Okay. And are women oppressed under patriarchy?
Yes.
Are they oppressed under patriarchy?
Not legally, but yes.
So what are some of the ways to be oppressed?
That's
Ways that I'm oppressed under the patriarchy. Objectification.
That's bad.
Let's say, even though it was enacted by another woman, when I came on the show last time, she accused someone of trying to see my no-no zone as a female. If I was a man, I don't think anyone would have accused that at all.
Wait, what?
That doesn't sound like oppression.
That sounds kind of bad for the
yeah,
for
that
the
sounds
man.
bad for the men, not good for
the
the
man
men.
who that happened
Yeah,
to.
it is bad for the men, but what I'm saying is the over-sexualization of women over time has grown to become bad for men. Because
Well, then now I don't understand. How's that you being oppressed by the patriarchy thing?
that's a universal. Every woman is oppressed by the patriarchy in that sense. Or I guess I don't want to.
That would be the opposite.
Okay, I
Like
don't want to
what-
say
that would
oppressed
be,
by the
you gotta
patriarchy.
take this chart and
every
you gotta
woman,
flip it over, right?
Every woman experiences sexism in the fact that they're typically seen as objects of attraction before objects of intelligence.
What? So I don't.
Like
Even I had to come in.
usually women are like physical trophies rather than their value is based. You've said this before on the last podcast. Their value is based on their fertility rather than their intellect.
That is one value.
Okay.
For attractiveness.
The patriarchy. How does the patriarchy impact me?
Yeah.
Oppress you.
Oppress you.
Based on what we were talking about last time, you guys think that a good woman is a mother, right? And a wife, right?
Did we even make that
I'm
argument?
not sure that. No, there could be good women who cannot be mothers. Tons of them. There could be.
So
yes.
what are they supposed to do in life if they don't get a job?
I mean, they can do all sorts of things in life
Vanish.
absent having a job. I
Sprint.
mean, they can still be married, still be taken care of by their husbands, and they can still adopt. They could do all sorts of things.
Okay, but I'm saying you think that a woman's role is to be a caretaker in the home. You don't think a woman should go out and be president of the United States.
No, I don't think that. Well, I can't even get into that. Let's just say, generally speaking, yes, I think that women have to be healthier at home rather than in the workforce. They all fucking hate it, and every time they get pulled on it, they don't like fucking working. They don't like working long hours. They don't like working. They don't like. Do you like working?
Yeah.
You do?
Come
on, really?
I find it to be more. I'd rather have a fulfilling career in my future than stay at home all day. No, I mean, I would.
Are you gonna outsource your care of the kids to a woman named RC, or like, what do you?
No.
Is that what you're gonna do, or are you gonna stay home with your kids?
Why doesn't my husband stay home?
Well, because generally speaking, men tend to be able to make a lot more money because they work a lot more hours.
Actually, women tend to. I'm pretty sure more women have college degrees than men do in
That's
today's
true, but
society.
that
That's
doesn't mean
typically
that
an
they make more
indicator
money.
of earning potential. Yeah, it's true. That doesn't mean they make more money. But what I'm saying is, a woman could very easily today have a higher paying job than her husband.
She could.
Yeah.
But they usually don't marry men when the man has the higher paying job. That's the big problem. There was a
What's
whole
the
thing
evidence for that
done-
claim?
Well, you can go to a channel called Ho Math. Not kidding. It's called Ho Math, where he breaks all of this down. And one of the things that he breaks down, and he's using...
We've had him on the show, by the way.
Yeah, he's using publicly available data in order to do this, is he shows that most women, when you look at the earning potential inside of a house, where there's wife and then later kids, the earning potential of a man almost always higher than women before they get married to him. In fact, the fact that this doesn't happen is one of the reasons that people clung on to the idea of hypergamy, because it's so commonplace that women will not marry if the social status of the man is less than her, including with earning potential.
Can a mother not earn money and also be a mother?
Yeah, I mean, that used to be the status quo. They used to either work out of the home, or they would do secretary work, or they would do, education. They would do work like that. In fact, feminism completely failed in its job.
At this very moment,
Toxic chemicals are endangering one of the most fragile ecosystems on the planet. You. When you vape, you may be exposing your lungs to toxic chemicals.
Hi, we're Visible, the wireless company that makes things visible. Get a one-line plan with unlimited data powered by Verizon's network, just $25 a month. Because you shouldn't need a shared plan to save. One person, one line, one great rate. Switch today at visible.com.
Hey guys. Alex just upgraded her live stream setup with the new TD Clear credit card.
Woo! Let's go!
Because she loves to set a predictable rhythm with her music and her money. Never miss a beat with TD Clear, an all-new card with no interest, just a simple monthly fee, so you always know what to expect on your statement. Because it's only human to want predictability.
Remember me, I'm the one who had you, baby.
But that's not relevant to the point. The point is that if I enjoy going out and doing my career more than I do taking care of the kids at home, then why am I tied down to that outcome just because I'm physically weaker? That's the whole point.
You never were tied down to that outcome.
Yeah.
You could just
In
not
your
get
view.
you could just not get married. But if you are married, the optimal system, if you actually value your children, is to stay at home with them. How are they going to get better results than their mother at home with them while their father works? That is the most. If you can give me a more optimal system for raising children than mom at home while dad works, I'd love to hear it.
A more optimal system for raising children
Yeah.
than both parents at home. Neither work.
But
and they're taking care of
but that would
children.
be entailed impossible, right? For most people.
What's the difference between that and
No,
having
no,
dad
hang on,
take
hang
care
on.
of the
Before we
kids
get into that,
and mom
I'll ask
work?
your next question just like I've been answering all of your questions, but answer mine. Can you actually think of a better system than mom at home with the kids and dad working? What could possibly be more optimal for the children than that?
For the children, having two moms.
That would be more optimal?
They probably get nurtured better. You guys say mothers are better caretakers.
So, I just want to make sure I got this right. First of all, the babies would have to come from somewhere, right?
I thought adoption was a huge thing that you just talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
but even if we were to entail that, let's just say I granted your argument and two moms would be optimal based on them adopting children. There's only going to be X amount of lesbians, which is a very small demographic, and X amount of children to adopt, which is also a small demographic. So that still could not actually be optimal. Even if I granted that it was better in certain circumstances, it could not actually be optimal for most of society to do this. That would not be optimal.
And neither is a woman staying at home and a man going out and working, because increasingly more we see the need for women to go out and work.
No, we don't. If women retracted from the marketplace tomorrow and stayed home, men's wages would necessarily double or triple.
Okay. So if all women didn't work and their rights were attached to the men that were next to them, what if their husband dies?
Then they would do what has always been done and be able to inherit land. Like, I can give you an example of this happening. George, you know who George Washington was?
Yes.
Who was he?
The first president of the United States.
Yeah, he was married to Martha Washington, and they had a big falling out at one point in their marriage because she didn't want to free her slaves, which she inherited. As part of a giant estate, she didn't want to free them, and he couldn't make her because women have always been allowed to own property. That's never been a problem. And if the man dies, though, they always were able to inherit his. That's why she was able to inherit from her father.
What about bank accounts and credit cards?
What about them?
That's a very recent development.
That's true, but do you know when it came to credit cards why it was that women didn't have credit cards? It's because men were responsible for their debt. Women couldn't incur debt. It was illegal. So women couldn't go with a credit card and spend at a store. The man, if she did, the man was responsible for everything she spent for her husband. So that actually made a lot of sense, especially if women aren't working. They might need lines of credit, but that would fall to the men. So if women needed to go get whatever they needed, put it on their man's account, that would take care of that. Pretty good system. And if it comes to what's optimal for children, doesn't that seem like it's pretty optimal?
Black Flame Nova donated $200. I wish more women on this show were like you. Even though you're a feminist, at least you're respectful, listen and have a good chat. Also, props to Andrew for handling this so well. Haters can shut up now.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know where we were at. But yeah, we were just discussing why that was with credit cards and bank accounts. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah, but that's you guys were asking me to list examples of like patriarchy or oppression. That's one of them, right? Being unable to
That doesn't sound very oppressive.
manage your own finances.
That doesn't sound very oppressive. It sounds like you can just go get whatever the hell you want and somebody else has to pay for it. I don't know why that would be oppression. That sounds like the opposite of oppression. Like, if you were to go to a man, do you think, and you said, listen, you're going to stay at home? You don't even have any children, okay? But you get to stay home and not work, and you can go out and buy whatever the fuck you want, and you're never responsible for the debt of whatever it is you go and buy. You think that they would think that you were oppressing them?
You make too many generalizations. Men nowadays aren't doing that for women. Women have to have financial stability.
I know that they're not doing that for women, but you were just complaining about this law that they couldn't have credit cards or bank accounts.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to you why that law existed. It makes a lot of sense why it existed. Because you're tying everything to a single income for the family. And the optimal system and what was pushed inside of society and what's been tried to be dismantled by feminists and nuclear family. But we used to push the nuclear family. And so in order to make that optimal, which is dad, mom, children, you had to tie everything to one income. And people used to be able to afford to get a single car every couple of years. They'd be able to go out and get a brand new car, bring it back.
Now they can't. They need a woman's income.
Because
They need a
women,
mother's income.
because feminism under rich industrialists flooded the market with cheap factory labor, which is what industrialists wanted. Cheap ass factory labor. And that's where women came from, cheap ass factory labor, and that's what they cared about. That's why they never gave them the vote. People knew it even then, and that's why the 19th was passed rather than a referendum state by state.
I might agree with that, but my argument would be when men go to war, who is supposed to work in the factories?
Well, in that case, it was still mostly men who were designing weapons, things like this. What women were doing were low-skilled jobs. They'd put screws in packs. They'd work on an assembly line, putting a bolt in something. They were doing kind of the menial labor jobs.
Yeah, so
but
they're getting paid less.
But those menial labor jobs would still have, paid less than who? The soldiers who were drafted and had to go off to war were often getting paid far less than what they were making at their jobs. So
yeah,
I
which
mean,
would mean women need to work even harder to provide for their family during that time. If men are being prescripted, now women have to manage the finances of the home.
You can't complain that there was a yoking where, well, wait, women made less than men. It's like
I didn't complain.
Men
I just
being
stated a
drafted
fact.
They would also make less than if they had stayed in those jobs. So it seems like that's a sacrifice that they should kind of be willing to make, right?
Okay, yeah, but we've conceded that there are times, like wartime, where women have to take on a financially providing role for the family.
Instead of going and dying, terrible. It's awful. Man, it sounds like they really had it rough.
Yeah, but that's not the point, is who has it harder. It's that shouldn't women be able to have independent control over their finances from the beginning then?
Well, even in wartime, right, when it came to this, what control do you think that they didn't have? They're still able to access these accounts. They just weren't responsible for them. They could get a bank account just through their husband's name. They just weren't responsible for the debt.
Yeah, so if they got too much debt for their husband, I bet they would come home and their husband would beat the shit out of them. You don't see
What kind of argument is that? Husbands weren't coming, they were coming home and fucking them. They weren't coming home and beating them. They were coming home and making... You think the first thing they thought when they got home was, hey, baby, where's all my money? Smack, smack, smack. Or do you think that after they hadn't seen a woman...
Based on the men I've seen.
That they haven't seen a woman after multiple years in a war theater and they got home, what do you think they were thinking about? Because I got to tell you, I don't think it was about where did the money go.
I don't just mean in a war theater. I mean just like from a day at work, they come home, the wife spent too much of your money, they're going to they're gonna beat the wife up. The Bible says Bible says to raise your hand at your wife if she disobeys
then you should be able to demonstrate or show that women were being abused at these much higher rates, especially domestically. They were not. But what is happening is that children are now abused at a much higher rate because feminism has broken up the nuclear family. So what happens is women, they'll have almost all children now, not all, I'm sorry, but almost over half, last I checked, are not born in wedlock anymore, the children which are born. Single motherhood is at an all-time high, and it's going to continue to increase. And what happens is if you bring in a non-biological parent into the home, the chance of abuse for your children drastically increases. I mean, it drastically increases with a non-biological male parent, stepdad.
You're putting the responsibility of women on the lack of fathers, but you have to know that it's not completely on the responsibility of women. Right?
Well, I'm not saying that women bear a full burden or responsibility for a man abusing them, so they have to get a divorce, or any number of these different cases. But what I am saying is that women are far more likely to end these marriages at a much higher percentage. You're talking college-educated women like you; it's as high as 90% of the marriages which are ended are initiated by them, and then it's about 67% of general marriages are ended by women, and it's for irreconcilable differences, not for abuse. It's not for abuse, It's, like number 4 down the list is money. But the first one's irreconcilable differences. I just didn't want to be married anymore. Not because of abuse.
Yeah.
So.
I forgot, what point we were trying to build to.
Well, we were building in feminism being a destructive path to the nuclear family, and how that's one of the primary reasons that I oppose it. And then I gave you example after example of how it has done that.
Okay. So you're saying because feminism is driving up divorce rates, that's why it's destroying the nuclear family?
That's only one reason. The other reason is because now it requires 2 incomes in order to raise a family, which means that more and more women have to send their kids off to public school. Public school gets extended longer and longer periods of time because it ends up being a babysitting platform for women, or for women's children. So basically, the public schools have now become your built-in babysitter, and then you have latchkey kids who come home, and you have these 2-income families rather than having the mom at home, which is of course optimal. And that's because we have 2 parents in the workforce, and we should really be trying to strive towards just 1 parent in the workforce. That would be optimal for the kids, right?
Why does that 1 parent in the workforce
have to be? But men can do most of the jobs that require that infrastructure requires. Women can still work. They work as nurses. In fact, they work in the same jobs that they kind of work in now. They gravitate towards, which is service work, clerical work, nursing. But what they don't gravitate towards is working on oil rigs, working on shipwrights, working on docks, working on infrastructure, AC control. They don't work on any of that stuff. And so, generally speaking, women can be in kind of these support societal roles, and that's fine. But it would be optimal if we were able to pull them back away from that more and more and more, and instead incentivize them to stay at home with their kids, because that would drive wages way up. That would be very helpful for society, and it would be better for the kids.
More men would have lower paying jobs, wouldn't it?
No.
Wouldn't that be the case?
No. So it's just supply and demand. So if you have the only cup in the world, it's worth a lot more than if everybody has the same cup, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same thing here. If you reduce the workforce by 50%, then they're going to be able to demand higher wages for the job vacancies, because now jobs are competing for them.
No, jobs wouldn't be. Oh, wait, hold on. You reduce the workforce. I told you I'm bad at math. I don't know.
Okay. Brian, I don't know where else we go with this, man. Okay. Brian, pull up lesbian domestic violence statistic images, kids in that house, and a good woman gets whatever she wants. These 304s don't get shit. Yeah, so he's saying that the domestic violence for lesbian couples is also through the roof. That's true, but I was just willing to grant it to show you that it still wouldn't make for the kind of outcome on society that I think we're looking for from a person who has the harm principle.
See, this is the thing about a good woman gets what she wants. These hoes don't get shit. What is the equivalent to that for men? Like, oh, a man who makes a lot of money gets what he wants and the rest don't get shit? That's not true. Because, okay, yeah, maybe they can pull less women, but in this case, you're saying a woman who's bad is subject to being treated worse by their partner, being hit, being punished for their failures. I don't know. Versus if a man fails, he just doesn't get a mate. He doesn't get physically abused.
Well, I mean, if you didn't have a mate, you wouldn't get physically abused either, right?
Yeah, but in this scenario, I need a mate in order to have a bank account. So.
Well, no, you get your bank account through your father until you had a mate.
What father?
Yeah, well, you're the ones who want to destroy that nuclear family, so that used to not be such an easy thing to do, to let your father walk out.
My father? I let my father walk out.
Not you. I'm just saying to let a father walk out on their family. Let.
It's never a father's personal choice to just walk out on his family.
There's social stigma, which is applied often, and church stigma, which used to be applied often, and the state could come in and actually make fathers take care of their children. Yes, they actually did do that. Not joking.
Okay, same goes for, like, you just said that a man shouldn't... Wait. Okay. Never mind, I'm going to sound stupid.
Okay. We have a chat here. GR Gracie says, blank on one, some of these young ladies are very respectful, introspective. I must ask, what convinces a woman that competing in business with men is more important than nurturing the next generation? If you'd like to respond.
That's a good question. I think that, like I said earlier, I just have a very individual view, and I think that maybe it's kind of a hedonistic view in this sense, but people should be able to do whatever maximizes their own happiness. And if having a career and being a business owner is like maximizes my happiness more so than...
You don't believe that, though. You don't believe people should be able to do whatever they want to.
Okay, not whatever. They have to concede to some things in the social contract with the government.
Then why can't they concede to let us make a social contract with the government that requires you to take care of your children and nuclear family, and that's what we move to as a society?
Because that's based on the Bible.
Harm.
Because that's based on the Bible. It's not...
No, I'm talking about minimizing harm. I'm talking about minimizing harm.
There's no... What? Okay, can you quantify for me how much harm is caused by the nuclear family being broken apart?
Well, yeah, I can give you tons of metrics. I just went over a shitload. You want to go through them again?
Yeah, sure.
Let's start with the metric of divorce rates increasing, the amount of women that are on the pill. Let's talk about...
But you can't prove that those are being caused by feminism.
We can. We can look at policies going back to when the 19th Amendment was ratified, and we can see who pushed for no-fault divorce, which was feminist. We can see who pushed for the pill, which was feminist. We can actually, yes, we can actually track, we can track all of this data. In fact, the CDC does track...
What's so bad about the pill?
A lot of these data. Well, I think that the pill might be one of the reasons that the mental illness rate in women is so high, because it fucks their hormones all up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the milk you drink doesn't fuck your hormones all up? Don't even ask me.
I don't drink a lot of milk, but I can understand that. But, you know, there's laws in the books that you can't drink raw milk.
Okay, but I'm saying there's
and there used to be that people could,
anywhere.
but now there's laws saying you can't. And yes, you're right. There are hormones inside of all types of food that can fuck your hormones up for sure, but not nearly as bad. And that's over time. Plastics will do the same thing. We were talking about that earlier. I agree with that. That's one thing we can find common ground on, right? Foods can have all sorts of hormones, antibiotic-resistant pathogens in them. But that doesn't change the fact that mental illness likely is increasing in women due to the fact that so many are on birth control.
You can't just take a fact and put it next to another fact and say that one causes the other. Where's the reasoning? There's no argument being made. That one is not valid premises for the argument.
Well, we'll try this then. Do you think, when it comes to reproduction, that the pill has decreased reproduction in women?
Has decreased. I couldn't tell you, but it is a preventative measure.
You don't think it's reduced reproduction?
Yes, it has.
It has.
If every woman...
I don't know. That's just a correlate. You can't just put one thing next to another thing and then make this bold claim that correlation makes causation, right?
If every woman was to have been taken off of birth control from the beginning of its creation and had sex all those times until now without the birth control, there would be a lot more babies born.
But that's still just a correlate, right?
I just explained to you how one causes the other because the birth control literally prevents the pregnancy.
But all causes just use strong correlates, all of them. Just so you know.
Go back to what you were saying. What was the point you were making? You said the pill.
The point that I was making was that the nuclear family and the damage which has been caused by us getting away from the nuclear family can be quantified. And then I was explaining the ways in which it can be.
Keep going.
So one of the things that I brought up was mental illness in women and the fact that so many women who are on antidepressants especially, they're able to correlate that with the fact that they're on birth control pills.
How do you know that they're not depressed because of outside reasons?
Because they take them off the birth control pills and they become less depressed. That's how.
Oh, yeah? Do you have a study for that?
No, did you have a study for the correlatory that you just gave? No, but it makes sense, right?
But yours, okay, that's fine.
But
any
yes,
other
there is data.
quantifiable
There is
factors?
data for that.
Any other quantifiable factors?
Oh, there's tons. There can be genetics involved. If you come from a single-family household, that seems to have more of an impact on girls, unless the girls are raised by the fathers. And then if they're raised by the fathers instead of their mothers, it seems
What
that
is your
mental illness
evidence
decreases.
for the claim that a single family influences girls more heavily? I mean, a single-parent family.
Because single-parent, well, that's not my claim. So my claim was, in a single-parent family where there's a woman, single mom who's running the family, the outcomes for the children with mental illness seem to be worse than if there's a single dad. The outcomes still aren't good. They're not like optimal. It's not what you'd like to see. They seem to be better from a single father household when it comes to mental illness than a single mom household when it comes to mental illness in the kids.
Because single father households tend to make more money.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, it's true.
Because
look it up.
That is true.
Single father households make more money than
But you're leaving
single
a
mother
big
households.
variable out of there, which is that the state aid, which comes in to single mothers along with child support, will often compensate for that income gap. This would include food money, free health care.
Trust me, I know all about it.
Yeah, but I mean, it does.
But
it does compensate. So if a man makes $4 on average more per hour than a single mother, that will disqualify him from potentially hundreds of dollars in food aid plus free health care on Medicaid.
Yes, but
so
the
that's
reason
a bad
why
argument.
that state aid exists so heavily is because historically men have discouraged women from working and have encouraged them to be mothers. They're less capable to work in high-earning jobs. Therefore, they need more welfare when their husbands die or leave.
I'm not even beating up the welfare. Men can qualify for the same welfare if they make less. I'm pointing out that your argument that the reason there's less mental illness inside of the children is because mommy doesn't make as much money as daddy would when it's clearly compensated
False.
for by state aid.
Would you say a Section 8 apartment is the same as an apartment paid for by daddy's salary?
Yeah, but
No.
daddy. But here's the thing.
No,
most-
in the neighborhood that they're living in? Ooh, that's rough.
Okay, so most of the men who would be involved with a woman who's in Section 8 housing would also be in Section 8 housing.
But that's not
It is.
what I said, that the men, I didn't say that they were together. I said
I
that
know,
men
but
tend to
they-
be higher earners.
Yeah, that's true, but most of the women who are single moms are not living in Section 8 housing. And the other thing to look at, not even close are they living, most single moms living in Section 8 housing, not even in the same universe. True, they could be living in more impoverished conditions, maybe, barely making ends meet for their 3-bedroom apartment or their 2-bedroom apartment for their kids. But the dads have to deal with the same exact thing, just that if they are earning more, then mothers are compensated for that lack of earning
From the government.
do
you think that
Medicaid and
think
food
that
stamps.
Medicaid is as high quality as
Medicaid
private health insurance?
Yes, Medicaid's some of the best insurance on planet Earth, along with Medicare. It's fantastic.
Then why don't we